Welcome to Alpha Wolf Trading. Did you know that there's over 12,000 stocks or companies that trade on the OTC? Between the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, you have over 7,000 companies. But us as retail investors, we wouldn't know that unless we were researching. Because why? Wall Street focuses on the elite, the big companies. And where the retail investor has their advantage is in small and micro-cap stocks. Why? Because you have the opportunity to speak directly with leadership. That is what this is all about here at Alpha Wolf Trading. We're trying to find the hidden gems, and we interview the executive teams of companies that we think meet the parameters to be those hidden gems. I also want to make sure you understand that this is not a paid-for promotion. I collect no compensation for the interviews I do here. These companies that I interview have been identified as potential opportunities for me and the members of Alpha Wolf Trading to receive a higher than average return on our investment. These companies I have identified either because of a technical setup on a chart, a fundamental change within the organization, new management team, new products, all kinds of different things that actually lead me here. But what do I think is the most important? Leadership. And that is why I do these interviews. I want to understand what drives the person that is leading the charge. I want to feel their passion. I want to understand their vision and the strategy that they're going to use to achieve success. That is what these interviews are for. I want to understand the share structure and the cap table, the size of the TAM, the total addressable market. This is the opportunity to learn all of those things. So sit back and enjoy. And if you learn anything from today's interview, do us a favor. Subscribe to the Alpha Wolf Trading YouTube channel. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. I recommend highly that before buying any security, speak to a financial advisor and do your own due diligence. Hey everybody, it's Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with a new company, exclusive, and the first company to list on the CBOE, which is an honor that they'll be able to hold on to forever. Nobody can ever take that away from you, right, Will?
That's correct. The first company listed on CBOE.
Yeah. All right. So Wil Ralston from SinglePoint. Thanks for coming on, Will. Very interesting story. Solar. You just did an acquisition of a solar company, right? And Boston Solar, and you also have another part of your business that I think is really intriguing is the airbox, right? And maybe you can first give us a little background on Will, how Will got here, right? And then give us a little bit of a rundown on SinglePoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, appreciate you having us, Tim, and look forward to sharing this and continuing to providing updates to you and everybody that's following along. So, SinglePoint, first company listed on CBOE, very exciting time for us. We've been focused in the acquisition side on the solar and renewable energy landscape. So, what does that look like? We're finding the number one, number two, number three providers, solar installers, boots on the ground, actually making the installations happen in local markets. And that's really important because solar's super fragmented. So me sitting here in Scottsdale, Arizona to go solar is way different than sitting in Vegas or sitting where our company is in Massachusetts. We have different rules, different utilities, different HOAs and jurisdictions. So you really have to understand that on a local level and be able to work through those licensing, permitting, and everything else as you work your customer through that installation process. So it's important to really understand your local markets. Our strategy here is to find these great companies like Boston Solar, proud partner of the Boston Red Sox, just launched a deal with Energizer Solar to do energy storage with Energizer Solar. So those types of companies, and really give them the larger backbone and back end operations of being able to increase purchasing power so that we can lower our margins and strive towards profitability. So that's the overall goal, is to find those great companies, acquire them into the portfolio, but continue having them operate under their local trade name, the community that they've built, and continue to build that presence. Then on the other side of the business, we have our air purification business. And this is really what I've always called the X factor. And the reason for that is there's $121 billion that has been dedicated for schools K through 12 to improve indoor air quality and ventilation. Most recently, we got a $5 million grant out of the Department of Education in California that we've been working to fulfill on, but we've sold in multiple other states as well. The marriage between these two and the synergy is we spend 90% of our time indoors. We need power. We're always connected. We have to have power to everything that we do. And we need clean air as we're sharing air in these environments and these students are back in school. We've seen what can happen. And there's just a huge top of mind presence on our indoor air quality and how it can improve our cognitive abilities, how we can reduce allergens, asthma, just overall lead and live a healthier lifestyle just by improving the clean air, the air that we breathe. So those are our two main core focuses right now. And that's the strategy, is continue to build organically as we acquire businesses and continue to sell more air purification units throughout the U.S. Schools and commercial and residential buildings alike.
Okay, well, and how did you wind up here?
So I've been with the company since 2018, and I came in as president after having worked a few stints with it before, consulting, kind of getting a feel for the business, and ultimately wanted to ensure that we got the company listed, which we successfully did. So at the end of the day, I'm a company guy. I came in 2018, got the company fully reporting, kept building the business. In 2021, through a plan with the previous CEO and founder, took over as CEO, and really set the strategy to make these acquisitions within the solar market. We saw solar in its second wave here, and the consolidation starting to happen. And we said, you know what, we can make a big difference in this industry. It's the right thing to do for the electrification of everything, because we're going to need more power, and solar can help that. And we can make a great business out of this model. So that's where I've been focused and executing. Prior to that, I worked at a couple different companies, one being Porch.com, which is now NASDAQ listed, and another one being Nike, which everybody knows Nike. So that's where I came up through and ended up here at SinglePoint.
Okay. So a couple of things I want to highlight. So I have a very close friend that is a neurosurgeon, probably one of the smartest guys on the planet. He has always told me that his biggest concern is air quality. That is his biggest concern. And I think he would know, since he's a doctor, but it equates to all kinds of problems with people, right? And that's why I liked when I saw what you had. So tell me about the airbox. So this guy had, I guess, NASCAR aerodynamic teams, the whole deal.
Yeah, there's a whole lot.
What makes this purifier unique is that it pulls in from the top, right? Is that the deal?
So it's actually reversed. It actually pulls in from the bottom.
From the bottom.
Air comes out of the top. And so we'll just kind of start from the beginning here. One, absolutely, your friend, the doctor, the neuroscientist, air is a problem. We've been in the 70s and 80s. Energy.gov came out with energy efficient buildings, which was great in terms of energy efficiency, but it sealed in everything that we're breathing. So it's all recycled air. So every breath you take, when you're recycling air, I'm now breathing that in. The VOCs, the dust, the pollens, they're building up in the systems, and we're breathing that in. And there's been studies coming out recently that indoor air quality can be attributed to taking about 7 years off of our lives, just indoor air quality. Over 20% of students in school have asthma problems. There's allergens, everything. But specific to the airbox and why our unit is so unique is because the engineer behind it currently engineers clean rooms for semiconductor facilities, which have to be next level, right? They essentially scrub in before going into one of these buildings to build the semiconductor chips. He also has a NASCAR Truck Series design team. So really looking at airflow dynamics and how air is moving in a room. So in designing this unit, it was not only important to ensure that we're cleaning and purifying the air, but that it's also changing the airflow dynamics within a room. So when you plug in one of these units and you turn it on, we're now actually bringing air in from the bottom, which is pushing it up and then pulling down the pollutants and the particulate matters down to the floor out of what we call the breathing zone, right? So that 2 feet to 4 feet in the air where we're usually sitting, that breathing zone,
Yeah.
we're pulling the pollutants out of there down to the floor so that they can work their way over to the unit in order to have that air purified. And the unit is actually certified HEPA, which is the highest rating you can get for cleaning air. In some of them, we run 2 pre-filters, one being a carbon filter and one being a antimicrobial filter. And it's the only unit on the market that is injection molded with basically a microban property. So the whole unit itself is antimicrobial. And the fan is an EPA certified energy efficient appliance. So we've really looked at everything here to ensure that this is the best unit available in the market. And to my knowledge, it's actually the only unit that meets the new ASHRAE regulations that are coming out. And ASHRAE is the overall governing body of how your air quality and your ventilation and HVAC systems are in school and commercial buildings. So it's really next, it's the next phase up in terms of indoor air quality devices.
Yeah, I like the whole tie-in, right? I mean, I like the solar energy conservation, right? I think solar leads to cleaner air as well, right?
Absolutely, indoors and outdoors.
Right. So, I mean, to me, it's kind of a natural fit. We talked about the price on the units. They're not cheap, right?
No, they're not, and they're built to last, right? So there's a multi-year warranty on them, 5-year warranty on the unit coming from the manufacturer. They're made in the USA. We use the highest level of certified HEPA, but at the end of the day, they're a commercial grade air cleaning, air scrubbing device. So when you're looking at wanting the best of indoor air quality, that's what it is right now. We're setting the bar for quality. Admittedly, it's not the most beautiful unit. It's not a Dyson, I understand, but we're looking for effectiveness and we're looking for longevity, because when you put these in a kindergarten classroom, they got to be able to take some punishment, right? We got kids running into them, and this thing's 27 pounds. You could drop it, it's not gonna break. So it's made to last.
You did say that you don't have to change the filter for 7 years on the bigger units and then 5 years on the smaller unit, right?
Correct. So there's some longevity there as well. You don't have to constantly be worried about it. And that smaller unit, it's still a 5-inch pleated filter. So lots of filtration happening there, and it's removing 99.997% and 99.99%. To be certified HEPA, that's the criteria you have to meet. And so they're tested. Every single filter, every single unit that comes out of the manufacturer's factory is physically tested by somebody, and the specifications are written on a label before it's packed and shipped.
Is the airbox product on the SinglePoint site right now?
It is, yes.
Okay, where
from an overview
site, and I'm looking at the subsidiaries, right? You've got Energy Wise, you've got Boston Solar, and then you've got BPA Solutions.
Solutions, Box Pure Air.
Okay, so that's Box Pure Air. All right, I got it. Okay, so let's talk about your journey to the CBOE. All right.
Yeah, it's a good story.
It is a good. Well, let's hear that story. So, if I'm going to tell you right now, I've always been a fundamental guy, right? And then actually, I never believed in technicals. I always thought technicals were like some kind of voodoo. What the hell is looking at a chart going to tell me about where the stock is going, right? To me, it was always about the fundamentals. And then, of course, 15 years ago, I took a course in technicals, and now it's the first thing I looked at when I'm about to. But my thing is, I haven't stopped being a fundamental guy. I just like to combine the two, right? If I can put a good technical setup with a good story, good fundamental story, then I think your odds of success as an investment are multiplied, right? I think you have a much better shot. So right now, it's not difficult to see where this chart was heading, right? It was from
Yep.
the upper left to the lower right, and that's okay as long as now you have a plan in place to maybe start a new trend from the lower left to the upper right, right?
Correct.
But let's go ahead and talk about how we got where we are today.
Absolutely. So, we can feel free to interject with questions or clarifications at any point, but really what we've been doing again, and since I joined in 2018, is to get this company listed. And that started off with becoming fully reporting, which we successfully did back in 2018. When I came in 2021 and started really working on the acquisition plan, acquired Boston Solar, got the financials, built the revenue base, and became eligible to list, we were able to go ahead and start executing on listing. And it started out on NASDAQ, right? That's what we were applying for. You can go back to our original S1 filings and you see those registration statements going through, to apply and list on NASDAQ. We went through that and we're singularly focused almost. The operational entities have their own management teams, and we, of course, had all of our check-ins and everything like that. And if you look at our revenue growth, we went from Boston Solar actually went from 17 million to 24 million. So now we have a trailing 12 months of over $30 million in revenue. So the operations of the business continued to improve throughout this time. But as we continued to pursue our NASDAQ listing and becoming listed, it just kept on dragging out for whatever for whatever reason we were dealing with through that process. We met all the qualifications, but there's those intricacies of the subjective stuff that happens when you're going through a listing process as well. So we went through all of that and we kept battling and kept, making the course changes where we needed to per the recommendations and the guidance that we were given. And what it came down to at the end of the day was, CBOE said, hey, we're opening an equities market. And we said, let's go for it. We've been, going back and forth with NASDAQ for quite some time now. We're excited because CBOE fits our mission. They're a purpose-driven company. They're looking for companies that are solving the energy mandates that are looking to be met, the healthcare, the technology. So they're looking for companies like us. We said this is a great fit. CBOE's been trading for, they trade over $1.8 trillion a day through their platforms, and it's just a wonderful exchange that we're excited to be the first ones listed on. But back to the point, they have a very similar criteria to NASDAQ. And from the day that we started talking with them to the day that we listed was only 5 weeks. And that's how long it took us to list with CBOE, because they had an amazing process, great support, and they clearly gave you what needed to be hit in order to achieve a listing, which is what we were not getting elsewhere. And unfortunately, that had a damper on our stock price, because rightfully so, and I can't argue this, people lost faith, right? When you're working on something for 18 months that's not coming to fruition, and you were not really allowed to share a lot of information about that, people lose faith, right? And so
you can't disclose what the hell's happening, right?
And exactly, because while you're under registration, you're not allowed to make a whole lot of announcements in general, let alone announcements about what's going on in the process. So that's it's definitely been unfortunate because the share price has suffered, and we have 42,000 shareholders, all of which we appreciate for holding on through this time and this process. But ultimately, we got there. We got listed. That's what we're excited about. That's been our number one hurdle in moving forward with our acquisition plan, as being listed, right? Because a lot of people have certain, preconceived notions about, other exchanges that we used to previously be on. And it became very difficult to finance those transactions and get buy-in from those sellers until we were listed. So now we're starting to see that pick back up. And we're going to start seeing a lot more acquisitions come through the pipeline and start executing on the plan that we've built, because overall we've been building it for the last 3 years. And now, our hurdle has been removed of being listed. So next is to rebuild the company, start getting it to go from right and up to left, where we need to go and continue to rebuild that value in this company.
When you did when you did the list, right? You did a reverse, right? And then I think there was some confusion for a while about the valuation that you were showing, which wasn't anywhere near accurate as to what the valuation really was, reflective to the amount of shares outstanding, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah. So, there's always it's always wonderful to be first, but sometimes there's their own hurdles of being first, right? So, and one of those is being the first equity that's been listed, especially as an uplist, because we have historical data, right? We've been traded before on another exchange. So to get all these platforms to, uh, you know, make that switch from us being previously listed on OTC, now on CBOE, a lot of those data feeds just took time to change over and to recognize that we had moved exchanges. So there was definitely some uh, differing data depending on what platform you were looking at. And that was a hurdle for us to overcome that is still out there in the market a little bit. We're still having press release issues when we make any announcements. It's actually not getting picked up everywhere, which has been a struggle because every day I get calls and emails from shareholders saying, "Hey, how come you don't have any releases out?" And I have to say, "Well, we've actually had about 5 or 6 out already, but they're just not getting picked up." So we're doing our best to put them on our website, put them in emails. But while we work through those things, we also have a business to run, right? Because there's a lot of people don't understand.
I would say
two things.
Most importantly, you have a business to run. Okay.
Yep.
I would say that, look, I've been doing this for a long time, and press releases are great if they're meaningful. Okay. Press releases just to put out press releases, just to put out press releases is just creating a whole bunch of smoke that nobody needs, in my view, right?
Yep.
I would much rather have a company be silent and executing than according to plan, and let the numbers speak for themselves when it comes to earnings time, right? I mean, that is what I'd much rather see than have somebody out there putting out a press release that really doesn't say anything, right? I mean,
yeah. No, we agree with that. We want it to be impactful. We want it to have some substance and some depth. And our goal is to keep everybody and the shareholders informed. And so you will see updates and announcements that come out that remind people of the story, who we are, what we're doing. But we try to ensure that it always works back into something that we've executed on, because we want to execute, tell you the plan, execute, tell you the plan, execute, right? And just keep repeating. And that's what's important to us, because, we do have that obligation of keeping people informed. But I agree with your point. And I don't remember the exact saying, but it's like a can that's not very full makes a lot of noise, So, we're trying to walk that line of just making sure it's impactful and that it makes a difference to the business, and it's important for the shareholders to know that.
All right, let me ask you a question. So you did say your trailing 12-month trailing was how much in revenue?
Over 30 million in 12 months trailing. And in our last announcement, we had put out there that we've got over $20 million in active commercial projects. And we have one of the largest pipelines in company history at this point for the commercial side of our business, which we find really important, because as we see either residential ebbing and flowing or commercial ebbing and flowing, they're able to help offset each other. So we continue to see that growth. And, it's only beginning of March here. So to see this business in the position that it's in, considering, that it's very easy to Google solar right now and see all the negativity within solar. But the fact that we've grown during this time and continued to make this, transformative effort over at Boston Solar is just impressive. And I'm excited about the team over there, because we just put in President Michael Morlino, who's got extremely great credentials, Master Sergeant, SEAL Team 6, 20 plus years there. So his operational efficiency and understanding is just top notch. And he's taking that experience and applying it at Boston Solar. And what we've been marching towards is that profitability. So profit first, flip the balance sheet in order to show that continued growth over there, which, to your point of fundamentals and technicals, as we start being able to show these numbers, it's going to showcase all the effort and everything that we've done at Boston Solar to showcase the growth and the health of that business.
So you've done not one reverse, but two, right?
Correct.
Okay. And
Correct. So the thing about the first one was it was predicated. How do I say this? It was predicated on us listing, and our goals, and well, not our goals, our guidance that was given was we had to do that in order to go ahead and list the first one. And then we did it, and that approval, I guess I would call it, was pulled back for a re-review of something else. But we couldn't undo the other part. But we were given the guidance that this was the last thing. Go ahead and complete it, and we'll move forward with that listing, in the next 10 days. And so that was very unfortunate because it was extremely impactful to the business and everything else. So that was, a really hard time for us, but what can you do? You got to keep moving forward. You got to keep rolling with the business, keep pursuing that listing. And then the second one, which is when we listed on CBOE, that we were able to go ahead and do simultaneously. So that was a requirement of listing, and we did it because it was the best thing for the company. In order to become listed, it was a requirement.
But so now you've got how many shares outstanding do you have, Will?
Right now there's about 7.5 to 8 million outstanding.
Okay, 7.5 to 8 million. I would call that a very thinly traded float, right?
Yep.
I would say that it would not take that significant of a news release with some real meat behind it to maybe send this thing off to the races, right? I mean, I've seen a lot of things in 35 years, actually, and when you have a stock that's got that small of amount of shares outstanding, it can get really fun really quick, right?
Absolutely.
With full press release. So what I find interesting is it seems to have a very high short interest of late. And that's where I get a little confused, because I think to myself, well, there's not that many shares out there. So, I mean, can you shine any light on that subject at all?
I really looked hard into that, and it is a very confusing topic because there's not a whole lot of required disclosure for people that hold those positions. And, like I said, I'm a company guy focused on the business and growing, a long-term, very, profitable business that continues to, something that everybody can be proud of having built. But I dove into this because it made me sick. And there's a few things I've learned that, again, are just my knowledge of trying to figure it out, whether they're exactly, what they're supposed to be or not. I don't know. But what I can say is from reg show data, which you can go pull on FINRA's short position report, the daily positions. From what I've seen, if I'm doing the math right now, I know what I'm looking at. There's between a 40% and a 65% short position, which has held steady since the day we listed, which I agree is huge, is a massive position in my opinion. I'm not a trader. Maybe you can tell me a little bit better about how that works, but that to me seems to be a rather significant short position. And some of the other interesting things that we found out is, that we've seen in history with whether it's Robinhood or, GameStop, is these naked short positions that are out there where people, or funds or whatever, they don't have to, if they're closing out daily, they don't have to find the borrow, or they don't have to, whatever makes that position be reportable, they're not having to report it. So again, this is just our research, anecdotal. I do agree with you. We've been reluctant to try to, blow that horn, because there's really nothing we can do besides keeping executionary on the business. And that's where we need to focus, is continue to just deliver results and let the business showcase its growth and its strength. And that will ultimately drive, shareholder value and stock price, as opposed to going out there and trying to blow the horn of, hey, we're, being shorted. Let's fight through it. Let's just keep executing.
It's a complete waste of time. I mean, that's not, I shouldn't say it's a waste of time. You want to focus your energy in productive things, which is growing the business, acquisitions, that type of thing, right? Yep. There's always going to be funny business going on in the stock market. I mean, one thing I have learned over 35 years is that when you think you've seen everything, you haven't seen everything, believe me.
The last few years have been extremely interesting with so many people being able to, go to your thumbs now, right? And trade, in Robinhood, Webull, and everything else. It's completely changed the market dynamic. It's so funny because I actually, for my membership service, I'm getting ready to put out a little note that, when I started in stocks, I literally, if I wanted any kind of information on the company, I had to have it sent to me in the mail, right? I had to pay a commission on the front end, and I'm talking a sizable commission. I had to pay a sizable commission on the back end. I mean, you couldn't scalp something because you would lose big time, right? I mean, there was a nice chunk of commission that went to the brokers. Who would ever thought we'd be in a day and age where you could trade for free and all the information is at your fingertips, right? But what that also does is, I think, when I grew up, that is how I had to do my thing back then. It made me a patient person. It made me a patient investor, right? Because I had to wait 5 to 6 days to get the reports. And then I'd have to read through the reports. I mean, it was just, but that stuck with me. Even to this day, I don't go all in on anything, right? I mean, I take my time building my position. And I just look at, naked shorts. I mean, who would ever thought such a thing, right? Naked shorts. How do you short a stock and you don't even borrow the shares? It's amazing. Absolutely.
Right. There's a lot of things that are really funky to me. Even financing institutions, to do a financing, they get 100% warrant coverage. And then before the financing deal is done, they short the stock because they're going to dump the shares that they actually bought 30% below where it's trading. And they're going to hold on to the warrants and not have any risk at all. They're going to de-risk. They're going to make the money on the fees, right? Wall Street has changed an awful lot. And going public, sometimes I wonder what is the benefit of going public, because you can't get coverage a lot of times when you're a small cap, right? So you look at everything, the challenges that small businesses have in the shark-infested waters of Wall Street. It's brutal, man. It is absolutely brutal. But there are some really good companies out there with really good people that are trying to make a difference in the world. That's why I do what I do, which is to try and help you get your story out to as many people as possible, right? Because we do need cleaner air and we do need solar energy, because I don't know about you, but my power bill here has gone up threefold in less than a year.
It's across the country. It's been unbelievable. And, just to you brought up a whole lot of stuff that is really probably more appropriate for a Jack on the Rocks. That's what I would need in order to have some conversations around the financings that take place out there these days, and the shorting and everything else. But again, like you said, it's about us executing. It's about the energy costs continually going up. On average, it's about 4% a year. This year, we saw 16%, I believe was the number in Massachusetts. Here in Arizona, I went from, I believe it was 5 cents to 17. So again, threefold, just like you're experiencing. And it's the utilities that's just that with the electrification of everything happening, they're going to have to start making moves on the infrastructure side of this, being able to handle all the additional load that's going on. So I understand where it's coming from, but what we have to do as individuals and consumers is look at what can we do not only to help that, because we need to create more energy. We can do that by going solar, but we also have to protect ourselves, protect not only economically when we're talking about going solar, because we're producing our own energy, but also just from grid outages, natural disasters. We want to make sure that we have always on power. And the way that we can do that at a residential and small commercial basis is solar and energy storage. That's right where we fit in. That's what we're looking to do, is ensure that you have always on power, you have clean air, you're reducing your reliance on the grid as needed, and ultimately you're saving, money. The easy analogy is, if you could go back to 2000 and lock in your gas prices for filling up your vehicle for the next 25 years, you probably would have done that.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with solar. Once you go solar, any portion of your bill that you've effectively offset, you're locking in at that price, and that's what you have. So that's what's important to us. That's where our future's focused, and that operational profitability and execution is number one for us this year. And so you might see.
How are you sitting in cash? I mean, cash is king right now. The biggest fear for anybody in the small micro cap space is the fact that they might have to do a capital raise, right?
Yeah, so our goal on the capital side is we may look at more expensive debt because we got to get the shareholder value built back. And so for us, what we want to work to do, and even at the operational level, if it needs cash, look at what debt can we bring in that doesn't have to have such an impact on the public market itself. Any financings that we look at, we want them to be accretive. So if we're looking at acquiring a business, we will have to go to market eventually to make that acquisition if it requires a certain amount. But that acquisition, our goal is to ensure that they're cash flow profitable and EBITDA positive in order to add that to the balance sheet so that it's accretive. We're not, raising capital for G&A and things like that, right? The capital raises should be focused around acquisitions and driving the balance sheet and P&L overall. But if we can, we would like to, and what we've been talking about with the team is, even though debt may be kind of at an all-time high expense right now for micro cap and small companies, it would be more beneficial if we can get through this cycle at this point in time, because we gotta rebuild what's happened over the last 12 months.
Right. So, and look, I think you've got a real opportunity to do that. I mean, Boston Solar has you've got several irons in the fire, right?
Yeah, and they're solar is the next decade. The IRA is the largest investment in renewable energy in history. $369 billion dedicated to clean energy. It extended the tax credits associated with solar for the next 10 years. So we've got decade-long tailwind here for us. And as right now, those things are getting ironed out, but it's there. The growth is happening now. And the best businesses are built in times like these. When we're at an all-time market low, it's extremely difficult out there. And I don't mean market, I mean solar. Again, if you Google solar, it's not, just being candid about it, it's not a pretty sight, right? There's a lot of companies that are having a hard time out there due to the interest rate environment. And, whether it's the financing companies that are having a hard time or anybody else. But here is where I see the opportunity to really build a springboard, because this is the time when your teams and those people that can focus in and huddle together can make some magic happen. And you're at the low of the market, in my opinion, for solar. We're starting to see it turn around. We saw a 35% increase last year, or not last month, from the solar, basically the mainstay in solar reporting, saw a 35% increase in residential solar go out the door. So we're starting to see this turn happen. But again, I think we're at the bottom of this turn, and we're going to start seeing things go back the other way. And this is when you build a great, sustainable, long-term business.
I'm going to throw some more gas on the fire here. The small and micro cap space has been getting pounded for about 33 months. It's the longest downtrend I've been through quite a few cycles, and this is one of the most painful because of just the length and duration. And I can tell you that, I mean, everybody's, I still hear people waiting for the recession to come, and I think the Fed's done raising rates. I think with the Fed being done raising rates, that takes a lot of the uneasiness and uncertainty off the table. Now we at least know the Fed will stand pat at the very least, and there's a good, I think, likelihood that there will be a cut eventually, because I think he raised too many times. That stuff hasn't even worked its way through the system yet. It takes 6 months to a year for that stuff to hit. Every time you raise, it takes a while to work through the system. So I think he overdid it. I think the indicators that we use to identify whether or not we're in a recession are different this time. Unemployment is not going to spike because we're not back to full employment pre-COVID in a lot of industries. So
Yep.
it may not be your dream job, but you can get a job, right? So I think there's just a lot of dynamics that are different. I know there's a bunch of people out there that are saying, oh man, it's the death of the electric vehicle, Rivian and all these other guys. Bullshit. We're going to have electric vehicles. That's where we're going. I don't care what anybody thinks, that you're not going to stop that train, because Europe is going to go all electric vehicles by 2035. You're not going to have car manufacturers making combustion motor vehicles and solar vehicles or electric vehicles. You're just not going to have that. For the United States, we're one of the smaller countries. Europe has many more cars than we do. That's where it's going to go, and that's why we're going to be forced to do it. So 2035, electric vehicles are coming. That means we're going to need a hell of a lot of charging stations. And I think you do charge, as a matter of fact, you do charging stations as well, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So, I mean, solar, charging stations, clean air. There's a good story to be told here. You had a little bit of a hiccup with getting to a senior exchange. Not only did you get to a senior exchange, you're the first one on that senior exchange, the CBOE. I think this is a really good story to start paying attention to. And you can go to the website and sign up for IR news release, right? Press releases sent directly to your email. And I highly recommend putting this one on your radar, right? I mean, I think you've been through the worst of it. Now you can focus on the business, right? You can focus on sales. You can focus on, and the fact that this is a tough time for solar and a tough time for micro caps, maybe it's a good time to do acquisitions.
Absolutely. Well, you hit the nail on the head. We've seen those prices come down, the multiples come down, and we've had a lot of acquisitions in the pipeline that were, ready to push over the finish line. But as these multiples have compressed, we kind of have to reevaluate. And so the silver lining here that is there for us is that we're not buying companies at what was the top of the market anymore. We've literally seen that compress to about as low as we believe it's going to go. So yes, these ones that we've previously negotiated and done due diligence on, they're still there, but we're having honest conversations with these individuals and the companies there to say, look, this is where it's at now, and this is what we have to do, because we got to make sure that we're not, buying something at the top. We have to be able to say, we're buying you based on the price of what you did, not what you might do in the future, right? So those are the things that are coming out. You hit a lot of good points. There's more cash sitting on the sidelines right now than I think there's ever been in history. Eventually, investors are going to have to start looking back in and finding where the yield is going to be created. I think micro caps and small caps are kind of the canary in the coal mine. They're always the first to go, but they're usually the first to come back also. So we'll start seeing some more movement there. It has absolutely been a long haul, but as you mentioned, I think we've seen the toughest times of it. And for us, keep executing, keep finding the right businesses to buy at the right multiples, turn around, professionalize them. We see a lot of value in that arb that's created from that private to public, buying it 2 to 3 times, seeing that trade in the public market at 5 to 7 times. And so it's not just about, the balance sheet, the P&L improving, but the overall valuation of just that private to public transition.
And you just went through a pretty intensive restructuring, right? I mean, kind of with the solar. Yeah.
Yeah, extremely. I mean, the balance sheet's completely flipped. So if you look at a balance sheet of last year compared to, what'll come out in the annuals. And if you look at the pro forma balance sheet, that's part of the registered offering. You see over I believe it's over 15-16 million dollar debt reduction. So it's a complete reshaping of the balance sheet. To your kind of point earlier about financing things like that, we've got no convertible preferreds out there. It's all common stock. So just a much stronger position now, and a stronger, better company than we've ever had. And I know it doesn't reflect that from a stock price and a market cap, but we now have a solid foundation to keep building upon, having essentially re-IPO this business. Let's call it what it is.
Yes, sometimes stock charts don't always tell the whole picture, and that's why you're here today, right? To get a clearer picture of what's happening there at SinglePoint. And I think there is, for many reasons, I think that the stock has been unfairly beaten down because of some shady practices that are happening in terms of the shorts. And look, those guys are playing with fire as far as I'm concerned, because what's your upside? You're gonna make what, 100% if you go bankrupt? They'll make 100% if you go bankrupt. What's the risk? If you have, I don't know, a really nice fat contract that comes out in the next couple of weeks, right? I would say that your risk is much higher than your potential for reward. So that's why I'm suggesting to put this thing on your radar, SING, which is pretty cool, right? We can all sing to the bank.
Yeah, I like it.
That's what I'm saying. I'm seeing the stock starting to base out, right? Technically, you're just kind of working your way sideways, which means, in my mind, the real sellers are gone, and you don't really have any buyers. It's just kind of in limbo land right now, right? But you've got some potential catalysts on the horizon, right?
Absolutely. That's at Boston Solar specifically. We've got a lot of catalysts there. The commercial side of the business is just doing phenomenal. We want to continue to see those acquisitions come in the door.
I know you can't give me guidance, or you probably won't give me guidance, but do you feel as though you could do what you did in the last trailing 12?
Yeah, so I mean that's our goals. Internally we set the parameter of continuing to be a high growth company, and what defines a high growth company? It's 20% year over year growth. So that's where we want to continue to live at, is as at minimum hitting that bar to continue being identified as that high growth entity. And we're right now, as we've been signaling to the market, we're focused on that profitability, because as you mentioned earlier, everybody's afraid of that next capital raise, and we want to ensure that that profitability is covering the costs of the business and continuing to kick up and cover the overhead costs of being public. Because being public alone, again, as you mentioned, being a small cap public company, it's not a cheap endeavor, and you have to be able to do the things that a public company has to do with audits, annual financials, everything like that. So getting to profitability is going to be a core initiative for the company and goal for this year. And we've signaled that could be by the end of Q2 at the operational level. So overall, continued growth. We want to see these acquisitions happen, and we're continuing to usher some through that due diligence process. But now more than ever, it's important that it's the right acquisition at the right price to ensure that it's accretive to the business.
And I love hearing that, man. I really do. I mean, I love hearing that. I would much rather see you get your stock price up, and then you can use your stock price as, or you can use your stock as cash, right? I mean, that you to buy a business. You find partners that want to stick around. Don't find companies that just want to take the cash and run, and maybe go start up another to compete with you, right? I mean, get people that really want to dance with you, and build a great company with everybody on board. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yep, exactly. That's what we're looking to do. So we want to be able to utilize that as incentive, but also to align, those sellers to the growth of the business, right? So if they're executing well and continuing to operate their business well, that's only that multiple that they sold for becomes more because they're in line with the equity side upside, right? And so that's in finding the right people to work with. At the end of the day, that's what this is all about: is the right people, the right teams. We talked a lot about that. It comes down to who are we surrounding ourselves with, and who are we working with, and are we going to be able to entrust them to do the right things to grow the business?
Yep. Well, I am very happy that we've had you on. I know I'm gonna be seeing you probably in about a month here in Vegas, but we'll do another follow-up when do you report?
March 30th is the deadline. So between no later than March 30th.
Okay, maybe after you report, we'll do a follow-up interview just to kind of see where everything's settled in, huh?
That sounds great. Well, I appreciate you having us on and taking the time to go through it. A lot of this is some new information that we haven't really got to share with everybody. So appreciate it.